We go.
Okay, welcome to the Judo Waza podcast. So my introduction is, the big question here is how do judo coaches, practitioners, and enthusiasts who love judo, who continue to spread the positive values of judo, how do we continue to grow our sport here in the United States and around the world and share the awesomeness of judo? That's the question, and it is my hope that these podcast interviews will give you the answer. My name is Ramon Hernandez, and welcome to the Judo Waza podcast. Today I have here Damian O'Hara, who is a judo and Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt. He is a level 3 certified CrossFit trainer. He's also a level 2 precision nutrition coach. And I knew I wanted to talk about nutrition, and I knew I came to the right guy for the answer. So, Damian, thank you for welcoming. Welcoming. Thank you for agreeing to do this, and here in your
Welcome
studio.
to the Jersey Shore.
Yeah,
It's a good day to come down.
We did, man. It's a nice day out here. My first question for Damian is, how do judo competitors should be thinking about sports nutrition? I'm sure that we have to prepare the mind first. I know I do.
Yeah. When going out on the mat, there's a lot kind of going on. There's a lot of moving parts. So I would kind of say, like, if you're looking at the way one of the nice things about learning a martial art, one of the best pieces of advice I heard from someone in an interview was learn to master something, right? So making those building blocks over time is what's going to set you up for success, no matter what you do, whether it be judo or nutrition or your job or your love life. So when we look at judo, we look at, like, refining the techniques, and then we develop some tactics and some strategies and stuff like that. Same thing when it comes to nutrition. There's a lot of layering of blocks, and I think what happens is with a lot of people, they look at their diet and their nutrition and just jump in head first with whatever it is that they're doing, right? They commit to this dogma, and maybe their goals aren't so clear cut. Same thing could happen when you're applying nutrition as a competitor in judo. It's just they're overwhelmed when they haven't mastered the basics. So I would say for anyone is this idea that you want to build skills just like you would in judo in your nutrition, and over time you practice those skills, okay? And then you develop behaviors and habits. And that's kind of the basis for me, for my approach to nutrition, is build a layer upon layer, and then you can start specializing in things, and then hopefully get to the point where, like in your judo, you start game planning through experimentation. Same thing with nutrition, not focusing on so much like what you're eating, maybe how you're eating it or why you're eating it. Same thing through practice in judo. It's like, all right, well, why are we doing this and how are we doing this? Instead of like, all right, well, here's a shoulder throw, isn't it Bonsai and Nagi? This is kind of it, and go figure it out by the seat of your pants.
Great answer. After you said all that, to myself, I think of two things. For myself, during my competitive years, when I think of nutrition, it was just outright starving yourself till you made your weight, right? And I would tell you that's probably 90% of the competitors out there. That's what they do. They starve. I don't think a lot of them are thinking of the proper nutrition to make sure that your body's performing at its optimal level. And I guess for me the funny story is obviously I've been in judo competition, and my kids have been in judo competition, especially my oldest son Junior, who has been competing since he's been a little kid. And I remember when he finally got into high school, he went out for the track team, and so my wife was so excited for him to be on the track team. She was worried about had he had something to eat before after school, obviously, and this is funny, and before getting to the meet. And so she would worry about having a sandwich or something for him to take to school that he could take with him to the meet, so he could fuel himself for his competition. And I guess my response was, wow, the kid's been doing judo forever, and we're digging into nutrition now. He was already in high school.
And like you gotta learn through mistakes, it's just like anything else. Like that's what a coach is for, right? Is ultimately to kind of like look at your mistakes and just triage and go like, what could we have done better? Like I think it's Elio Gracie or Hickson Gracie said, there's no losing, there's only winning and learning. You should just take that same application. You might doing martial arts and apply it to your nutrition, all the same. You know, when you're endeavoring into something, like, why did I screw up? Like, and not be so, you know, like, you know, I throw the word dogmatic, but you know, oh, like I had a cheeseburger. Okay, like what were the things leading up to that cheeseburger that might have happened that maybe set you up for failure? But at the same time, like, no one's saying you shouldn't have a cheeseburger every once in a while. Like, it's not a religion. It's just eating.
I think stress. You know, you feel stress, you get mad, and what do you want to do? I mean, for some addicts, like, let's say, drug addicts, what do they get? They got to get their fix. For me, if I'm annoyed or something like that, you know, I'll want to drink maybe a Starbucks coffee, so because it'll make me feel good, you know, which is probably not the right thing to do, you know, but having it once in a while is okay, but it's not, shouldn't be a part of your nutrition plan.
No, and then, you know, it goes to that mindset thing. So I need to write some stuff on the board here. Okay. So I like to break things down because there's a lot of moving parts into what's going on, not just for judoka, but, you know, for everyone. So I like to break it down into 3 areas. So I'll see if I could draw 3 circles rather evenly. I got my Venn diagram.
There you go.
All right, so I like to break it down with movement. And this could be like training, physical training, but like I kind of like to generalize it a little bit more through movement, just because training is not going to always be, just because you're going to see the relevance between the other 2 categories. And obviously we have nutrition. And then the other one is state. You're talking about the mental component. All right. So I always kind of ask people, like, what's the hardest aspect of these 3 things? And a lot of people go, training is so hard. And it's like, well, sometimes it's just an hour or 2 out of your day. There's those other 23, 22 hours of the day that you got to deal with where this stuff comes into play. So I would say, like, the movement aspect or the training aspect is generally the easiest, because we know that we can control at that point in time. So this other stuff outside the dojo or outside the gym, it becomes rather tricky. So when it comes to states, and you're saying like that fix, so this, I kind of trick people when I ask that question, because I kind of leave this ambiguous at first, is that idea of state. I kind of got this idea from CrossFit football. I think it's called Power Athlete now. And they went training, nutrition, and recovery. And I like that breakdown, but over time, I started kind of, you know, always experimenting, always trying to research different things. Now I'm a big proponent of this guy, Strong Fit, Julian Pinnell. So I kind of cut and paste a lot of his stuff into my nutrition and my strength and conditioning practice. So this idea of state, I mean, it does include recovery, and a lot of people confuse recovery with just rest, and rest is just not doing anything. Like, there's an active component to recovery.
A nutrient component.
Well, not just a nutrient component, but a practice of that, like, mindset. Like, that's kind of the simplest way, and like we can go into this a little bit more. But like, what is, like, you know, if we want to fill this little circle in with like things like sleep, are you amped up in a way? So like, we break it down into sympathetic, and I'll just shorten it down, and parasympathetic. So like your fight or flight response, your rest, digest, and repair. Okay, maybe we could work some like easy, like maybe like ice bath. Some people might say that that's a recovery component. That's up for debate. But the idea of changing states, right? Because like, you can have movements that are calming, like yoga. It's a more parasympathetic type of thing. It's not as intense as, say, as something like powerlifting or something like that. So powerlifting, we can say, might be in here. Okay, obviously we have judo, big component in here. But there's this overlap of these things, and then nutrition can, if we look at nutrition, we can use nutrition to stimulate sympathetic response and or a parasympathetic response. Okay. Another thing over here that go down a rabbit hole is meditation. That should be a huge recovery component. All right, to help that mindset. Building that idea of flow, under tension, right? And it's funny we're kind of having this. I've come to realize recently, I do most of my training because I consider now myself a flow junkie, and you helped me come to this realization. I don't know if you're, did I ever tell you this?
No.
All right, so to give a little background, for years I would compete, and I would have my old sensei, Yoshinosuke, God rest him, and he would sit in his chair. Damian, dude, get him on the mat, and I would never like hear him.
Yeah.
And then he passed away, and then you were the first person to sit in my coach's chair at Nationals. I don't forget.
It was in Dallas.
It was in Dallas.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, this guy, I'm gonna hear him. I was like, Ramon, don't let me think I'm alone out there, man. Like,
yeah.
let's, like, help me out.
Keep talking.
And I got done the match, and I went up to Ramon and I said, bro, what's you left me out, like, I need your help, man. I need some cues to help me out. And he was like, bro, I was yelling at the top of my lungs. He's like, I lost my voice.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh. So I went back to the drawing board. I got done, the tournament, and I watched the video. Sure as hell, you were yelling. You could hear, because like the cameraman was like up in the stands, and like he was yelling, and it got me realizing like, I was in that zone thing that people talk about.
Would you call that flight?
No. It's everything but flight.
Okay.
It's a flow thing, which we can get into if you want. So this is a principle from more or less from Strong Fit. So most people look at things on a linear sense, right? Because it's easy to describe, black and white. So you have your sympathetic and your parasympathetic, and there's like this idea of a sliding scale, right? But what I like about Pinot is that he said, no, it's not that simple. It's more of an arch. All right, so if you look at this arch concept, it's pretty much divided into 4 parts. The base, and here, okay? So there's a natural progression. It's called the phylogenic progression that we'll use a part of our autonomic system in the what's newest. All right, so because we have this developed parasympathetic system, we'll use that first. So generally that's like socialization or how we build flow, okay? Because this side is parasympathetic and this is gonna be sympathetic. All right, so this is gonna be our fight, and this is gonna be our flight. And then there's also freeze, which is over here.
That's the state you were in.
No, I hope not. I did well at that tournament, how do you know? Because you were searching for the data boy.
There you go.
As my coach.
There you go.
All right. So bridging these two things is really where flow happens. Okay. Like you ever go through like maybe a social situation and you go, man, like time went like that. Yeah. So like you were in a flow state. You were in a socialized state, right? Everything was cool, okay? But there's this like little teetering part, and that's probably why, maybe at the end of the day, why I love judo so much, because it's always the hunt for these two things. It's just that when we start going too much over here into the flight is when we get into trouble, okay? Because then we start losing things like coordination. We know in judo, you need a hell of a lot of coordination to make things happen for those throws, those techniques to happen.
So what you're saying is that when you go into flight, you lose athleticism.
Yeah.
And it goes south like a duck in winter.
Yeah,
Okay.
you have no coordination going on. You start metabolically shifting into different gears, using different pathways that are not as efficient as, say, this portion.
And I'm assuming that kicks in when the lactic acid is killing you.
Well, that's funny you mentioned that. So like, we use lactate here, this whole thing. That's ideal. Oh, right here. It's when we start to past this threshold over here that we start using things like adrenaline or cortisol.
Cortisol's bad.
Cortisol is not, it's not a good thing. I mean, you need it.
Yeah.
You have it, and this comes into another portion of this is the idea of circadian rhythm. We need cortisol, that's what wakes us up in the morning.
Yeah.
And then it spikes in the morning, and then it starts to teeter down, slower and slower and slower, and until we calm down and go to sleep. And then people mess with those cortisol levels. Like I know, like I went to a doctor and we tested my cortisol levels, and they were in the tank for all sorts of reasons. Working third shift for a number of years, and then trying to operate on my normal days off. Like, yeah, I gotta go train, you know, an hour and a half away and do double sessions, and you know, what did I do? I was 20 years old.
Yeah.
My neighbors and when I used to go to Rutgers would keep me up, or my roommates. So all those things added up on top of all the overtraining I did. It was a pretty amazing experience when I finally normalized them. Like, wow, like how much more clarity you have. But yeah, cortisol, adrenaline, like all these things, you start operating, you start burning those things off. And then one of the other things with the cortisol, so even by managing stress, so like to kind of bring it back to nutrition a little bit, a lot of people don't look at their stress management or their sleep, which is a big part of stress management, as part of their nutrition. Mm-hmm. So if someone comes to me and is like, hey, I want to lose some weight, probably one of the first questions I'm going to ask is like, how's your sleep?
Yeah. Remember that lunch we had? I won't mention who it was, but he had said he sleeps like 3 or 4 hours a night. What'd you say to him, man? It's not about the chassis, it's about, you know, how it's operating under the hood.
How's the engine?
How's the engine operating?
How's the under the hood treating you?
Yeah.
But yeah, man, so like if you have this pumping through your veins, like especially the cortisol, because there's a specific mechanism for this, that when it starts pumping, when you start freaking out, cortisol starts getting pumped in your veins. It has an ability to take a blowtorch to your muscle tissue to break it down into sugar, because your body runs really well on sugar. It's because it can break it down instantly. So if you have this in your veins all the time, even just the mindset of the stress pumping this through your veins, and then you wonder why the stress is causing weight gains, because yeah, you're always pumping, whether you know it or not, sugar into your veins, and then you know people, even without eating, can start things like, you know, type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, and stuff like that.
Interesting.
But it's this. But what the judo is trying to develop this thing, and there's things outside of judo that we can try to develop. I think because I feel like I've had the experience to do it in the past few years. You know, like I always kind of say, like, well, to get better at judo, you have to not do judo, or to get better at CrossFit, you have to not do CrossFit. Yeah. So doing things like meditation, breath work, yeah, including nutrition. Like, yeah, nutrition has a way of manipulating these things too. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so like we hear, like you said about the fix with the drug addict. You know, people like to throw around that sugar is just as addictive as heroin or something like that. Well, it's not as far as I understand, it's not the chemical aspect as so much as I think it's the stimulus effect of what it's doing on this scale. So generally we hunt for this fight. We need it. We're violent animals. We're violent creatures as humans, like in our nature. Like we have to be. This is this idea of winning. Okay, we want to experience winning. But the problem is when we don't experience that win, it's not necessarily that we've lost at that point, is when we go into flight. So we're always in this state of flight all the time, okay? And then guess what happens? We become so exhausted. The body, the brain, has the ability to say, forget you, we're gonna go to freeze. Yeah, yeah. And incidentally, this idea of flight is also where anxiety lives. That's kind of important to mention. Yeah. This is anxiety. Right? Because we're afraid of what's going to happen to us. Yeah. Always. Yeah. Anxiety is not necessarily like an emotion. It's a response. This is ultimately depression.
Okay, look at that. And is this part of the Venn diagram?
Well, no, that's what we did before.
That we did before. What diagram would this fall in there?
This is just Julian Pinot's arch. Like, he's big into this idea of like building an arch. So there's like, you look at here and there's a keystone kind of going on to hold all this together. Yeah. But our problem is that we spend too much time here in here for all sorts of reasons.
I'm gonna jump in here and
Yeah.
tell you that this is exactly where judo instructors and guys that run dojos, you're right, what we're dealing with right now. And I tell you, right, I talk to a lot of people, okay? People in our profession, you know, he runs a club, I run a club. You know, a lot of people are teetering back and forth with this. I've heard the word depression come out of people's mouths, and I'm worried about it. And you know, dealing with the coronavirus. I don't even like to call it coronavirus. I like to call it COVID-19 because obviously it's affected the.
You call it the Chinese.
I don't call it the Chinese. I call it I want to call it the COVID-19 virus because I don't want it to affect the beer company, man. I'm all about the economics too.
Okay.
There you go. There you go. So anyway, so right now, right, people are right. Cortisol is pumping. People are in flight. They're in anxiety, and then they get to the freezing depression. We got a lot of people teetering in this area right now, and it's a lot of club owners.
Yeah,
right now.
it's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I mean, just you know.
But again, to tie it back into nutrition, if you think about, like, people talk about comfort food.
Yeah.
There's a physiological response to eating comfort food, like sugary foods.
Go ahead.
So if what ends up happening is that we eat these sugary foods, okay? Because for a bit, it brings us into this, right? It brings us into this fight, even into this, like, if you think about drinking, it's like an extreme almost. All right, we drink, you know, people say, I feel loose. I feel like I can get along with a lot more people when I drink. Well, yeah, because, like, it helps you touch into this. Like, this feels good. This feels good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But the thing is that there's no outlet when you eat that donut.
Yeah.
So then, because there's no outlet, there's no sense of winning the fight, you go into flight. And then when you're doing this way too much, you go into freeze. Your body starts shutting itself down in a way that you don't have control over.
Interesting.
So, I kind of wanted to touch on that, because I don't want to leave it hanging. It's that idea of, like, not doing something to get better at it, like with the idea of judo or just in general, right? So, we tend to think that the brain controls everything, right? So we go from this top down, the brain telling the body what to do, and that's pretty legitimate. That's called the efferent system, okay? But there's a lot of stuff going on in the body telling the brain what to do, believe it or not. So we go from the bottom up. This is afferent. Why is this important? Because 80% of the signals in the body are over here.
Say that one more time, that last part?
Yeah. Okay.
Say it again.
80% of the signals in the body are going up.
Wow. Only 20% going down.
20% are going down. So that's why it's so frustrating for people that are maybe suffering from depression or anxiety. Like, you try to talk sense into them. Well, this is why. Okay? Because the signals have been being sent from the bottom up. You're trying to address it from the top down.
Why does it do that? And can you give me an example of the 80% going up?
Well, why does it happen? So
yeah.
Think about it going back to that phylogenic hierarchy of, like, you know, we worked from flow and socialization. We went to fight. There's no outlet for winning in the fight, so you go to flight, and then freeze, right?
Okay.
So it's kind of an evolutionary thing, and whether you believe in evolution or not, it just, you know, there's a framework there to work with. We don't have, you know, if you look at other animals, like lower level animals, like, they don't have these brain things. They have, like, a body thing. So it kind of reflects, like, okay, it kind of works on the opposite end, right? So things like the stomach, like, there's a whole nervous system going on.
When it's hungry, it tells the mind.
It says, hey, this is what we want. Going so far as to say that what you eat, your mindset, is going to have an effect on the bacteria that makes up your GI tract. there's more genetic material in our GI tract than we do have cells of our own body, just to kind of show you. Like we really, and we have no idea, like we have very little understanding of these bacteria in our gut biome because they have a hard time living outside the GI tract. They die. So it's very hard to kind of study them. So we'll go stomach here, because we have something called the enteric system. Okay. Has its own nervous system. You produce a lot of your serotonin here. Actually, most of your serotonin, that what people call it the feel-good hormone or a neurotransmitter, is produced there mostly, and just a little bit less in the brain. Breathing. This is one of my new favorite rabbit holes because we do so damn much of it. I think people can respond really well to this if you just pay attention to how they breathe every day. There's a sense of touch, right? Different applications of, I mean, like if you think about it, like as weird as it might sound to us, because we don't get enough of this, is how like we touch each other through judo, through violence. But like, you know.
Or through the handshake, man.
It's always about the handshake.
The mensch kind.
And people want the handshake to go. They want to take the handshake.
Yeah, I'm going to stop there.
All right, but like, there's a touch application there. Okay.
Yeah.
And there's probably some more. But if we could just learn and to send these signals. So with the stomach is obviously nutrition. So our nutrition can have an effect on this. Like I said, with the comfort food. But even like with things like protein, protein has a calming effect. Yeah. So if like you're eating, this guy's like, I gotta eat 300 grams of protein. It's like, well, you're trying to calm yourself down when you're trying to rev yourself up and train all the time. Yeah. Your organs need a break. Okay. Like the digestive tract needs a break. From all that digestion. But with the breathing, just sitting. Amount of time we sit, we make kids sit in school all day, has an effect on their breathing. So if like the calming effect of breathing through the abdomen, right, as opposed to breathing through the chest, like if I throw cold water on you, you know, that if I forced you to breathe like that, think about breathing through a straw, how stressful that would be. Like that would get your anxiety levels up. Right. Cortisol. But if you listen to like a yogi teacher, like I've taken a yoga class in my day, you know.
I've taken a lot of yoga classes.
And when they talk about the breathing, slow out. Well, that exhalation has a dampening effect on your sympathetic state. That's why it's so, yoga is generally so calming. Even though some of the positions are like CAA interrogation positions as far as I'm concerned. But if you're sitting all the time and you're compressing on that diaphragm, well, you can't access the calming effect of breathing. So you're basically sending signals to the brain like something is wrong.
Wow, 80%. Wow.
80% is just going to that brain, kicking in the butt, saying something's wrong. And then what happens? You go for that donut because you want to get that sense of when, and there's no outlet.
Starbucks right there. That's right.
You've been hitting the Starbucks as it's been open.
You know what? Oh, I don't even want to. I'll talk about that later. I'll talk about that later. Keep going.
Obviously, the breathing has a touch with the meditation. Okay. Listening to things. How do you listen to things? Like this, the guy will go back and refer to Pinot. It has this protocol for calming down, just because we're the lactate and the buildup. Try to flush out the lactate because it's a fuel source for all sorts of things, but can have a calming effect in a way through movement.
I've heard the term, guard your eyes, guard your ears, guard your mouth. You know, obviously, you know, watching bad news all the time. That's probably
Think about a walk.
Yeah.
I dare you to go out for a walk and feel stressed. Like, because part of it is like they found that by where you look. Generally, above, if you look around above the horizon, it actually has a calming effect. It helps to stimulate the parasympathetic, the rest, digest, and repair. Whereas if you're looking down, where are we always looking down? On our phones, on a computer. You know, we're hunched over in this position, driving on a desk. And these things add up. These are sending signals to the brain to interpret them as stress. pressing on that diaphragm. You can't breathe.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
You go for the cookie. You go for the donut.
Yeah. Talk to me about the Venn diagram and the diagram right before this. Is this from the same nutrition coach that you're following, or do you follow, different different sources for nutrition?
Yeah, different sources, because like it's not one size fits all. I mean, just like judo, someone coming in, you as a coach, an instructor, a sensei, kind of to see where someone's at, kind of what they bring to the table. It doesn't mean like you have to have all this experience in order to be successful. It's just recognizing like, hey, this is where this person is, here, and even laterally speaking. Some people, for instance, do really well on something like intermittent fasting. And there's all sorts of different ways to do that.
Like it or not like it, the intermittent fasting?
I mean, it depends on what your approach is to it.
Mm-hmm.
I would say if you're trying to do it for solely weight loss, then you start running that edge of like stressing out on dieting. Because like some people, I mean like me, like I can't intermittent fast. Like I start to like get angry, hangry.
Yeah.
But I also train a lot.
Yeah.
So like sometimes I'm training twice a day, and
it's fuel that body.
Yeah, I gotta get a fuel source going. So like for someone that's maybe not as active, like okay, like maybe, but like there's some intermittent fasting protocols where it's like, well, I'm gonna stop eating at 8 at night, and I'm not gonna eat the next day till 10 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon. And there's some people where like I'm just gonna fast the entire day once a week or twice a week. Like I couldn't hang with that. It's not to say that it's bad. It just depends on like what your lifestyle is. What do you want? Like the founder of Precision Nutrition, Dr. John Berardi, he experimented with it a lot. Like wrote a lot of articles about it, and he had a really easy time doing it until he had a family.
Yeah.
And then like when he had to do his work and he had to go deal with his kids, all of a sudden, Daddy, why are you such a jerk? It's because he wants to eat.
Yeah.
So he said, all right, well. And then someone else on the Precision Nutrition staff, a woman did it, ate less and gained a significant amount of weight.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the body responds differently to different types of nutrition protocols.
I want to jump in here and add that since we've all been locked down, in our houses, not been able to go out, we've gotten out. My wife and I, we've gone for a lot of walks. With the dog, without the dog. Strenuous walks. We're really trying to walk fast, and she's usually like 4 steps ahead of me, And the one thing that I'll tell you is that I think that if it wasn't for those walks, it definitely would make the day longer. Talking about nutrition, I was listening. Another thing that we've been doing is obviously we go on our walks, or I go by myself on a walk with the dog. I listen to podcasts and. Let's see. Just last week there was a podcast on it was a club out in California. They were interviewing Jimmy Pedro, and Jimmy Pedro said at the 2000 Olympics, obviously he didn't perform, at his best level, and the big reason for that was nutrition.
Travis.
No, Jimmy Pedro.
Oh.
In the 2000 Olympics.
As a coach?
No, as a competitor.
Oh, okay.
Right? 2004 was his last Olympics. So he had retired after 2000, but he didn't perform well in the 2000 Olympics in Sydney. Okay, he came in 5th. Okay, he didn't medal. And the reason for that, after looking at the day, he had said the one thing that he had skipped was lunch, right? Because he had weighed in, and then he had to go back to the dormitory, to the village, and just hang out, and he didn't eat anything. And come time, to compete, if I recall correctly, he was sluggish, right?
Yeah.
So, that was one thing that him and his team had figured out afterwards. That was a big part for him. But and I know from like talking like say a guy like Chris Kelly, he makes sure that everybody eats breakfast. He makes sure that they have enough food, when they're on the tournament site. And so I know that he watches out. So I bet you all the high-level coaches now, right? When you talk about like guys like Jason, guys like Jimmy, guys that obviously are dealing with high-level athletes or athletes that obviously have the want to reach that level, at world level. nutrition is probably a big part of what they're doing.
Yeah, that's it. I think it's one of those things. Youth is wasted on the young. You don't realize how important it is until it's over.
Wow.
You know? Wow. So you can only listen to your elders and.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the end of the day, like, you know, you asked me this question, like, as far as like a nutritional blueprint or whatever, like intermittent fasting or keto or paleo, like, you got to experiment and see what works for you.
Yeah.
You know, is what it comes down to.
I have a friend, right? A bit of a ding dong. A long time ago, he told me, right? And he says, this is not for everybody. This is just for me. This is the way I do it. And it was completely wrong. He said, I like to eat a chocolate bar right before judo workout because I know it's going to give me the rush that I need. But he said, I know the crash is coming afterwards. I'm like, if he watches this, he's going to know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about him. But like, man, that makes friggin' zero sense, you know?
No, there's actually something to it. The guy Pano that I keep talking about, he doesn't do it so much anymore just because of some of the things I think he's working on. Is he would actually drink 1.5 liters of chocolate milk.
Okay.
Before a workout.
Yeah.
But just to kind of, well, what's going to happen is when you ingest sugar, carbohydrates, and the more broken down they are, it's going to be coursing through your veins. So they're very easily accessible to be used as energy, right? So it's when you burn through all that stuff is when you start, either dependent upon how you're exercising, or what type of workout you're doing, or activity, is going to either tap into your fat stores or your glycogen, which is just stored carbohydrate. So the thing is if like you're eating all the sugar and you're not using it as a source of energy, then you end up storing it either as glycogen, but there's only a finite amount of space available for the glycogen, and then what happens is your body still wants to store it, so it stores it in the fat stores as triglycerides. So
that's bad.
Yeah, that's not good, especially if you're doing it with carbohydrates.
Okay.
It breaks it down, and the triglyceride count, it's not necessarily such a great thing, and then the weight gain to boot, you know, that's where it comes from. So I'm not saying eating a candy bar is the best thing to do. Yeah. But there's something a little bit to it. Not to mention, because it's so sugary, it creates that sympathetic response to put you in fight, to get you ramped up for the fight, to make it happen. So there is that.
What about water? Because I see like a lot of athletes, like I've seen videos on athletes going on this water diet. I think you've gone on the water diet.
Oh, water loading to cut weight.
To cut weight.
Yeah, well, that's a different story.
Okay.
So it depends. You mentioned water. That Jedi mind trick to me.
These aren't the druids you look at.
This isn't the water you want to drink. With water, it is. I think people hit on it, but another aspect of it, I don't think enough people recognize, is the electrolyte imbalance. That they're not taking in enough electrolytes to help supplement the water intake.
And that's in water.
There are some electrolytes in water, but what happens is if you're drinking too much water, you can help to flush out the electrolytes.
So how much?
That's not a good thing.
Not a good thing, but how much water should somebody take in a day? Mind you, something bad happened probably like 10 plus years ago. A radio station had dared somebody to drink a gallon of water right there on the spot. That woman died. You know, so drinking a gallon of water right there on the spot is terrible.
When you hear about someone dying in a marathon, hypernatremia, yes.
There you go. Wow!
Come on.
Whoa!
I'm impressed.
Booyah! Yeah! Okay, sorry.
Level 3 over
Excuse
here. But when you hear about someone dying at a marathon, it's usually one of two reasons. That's one of them. It's because they've actually waterlogged themselves so much. Yeah. They don't have the electrolyte. They've created such an electrolyte imbalance in the water intake that it becomes deadly lethal.
Sorry, I hit you.
Next time, you're gonna have to pay.
There you go. But awesome. But like in terms of like intake, like on the daily, what should like your average person versus like a judo competitor take water intake on a per day? Half a gallon?
I mean, everyone's different. Like,
yeah. I've heard a gallon, but a gallon of water just seems like insane.
If you're like, the thing is, if you're constantly going to the bathroom, like your body is telling you something. You know, so like I would take that into account. Again, your electrolytes, and like as far as electrolytes is concerned, it's not like drinking Gatorade.
Yeah.
Like Gatorade is like the worst thing you could possibly ever drink.
You know what? I always tell my
it's a formula that's been around for like 40 years and hasn't changed.
Yeah.
So like it's pretty awful.
Yeah.
It's just high in sodium, very little potassium, and nothing else. It's all sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
Yeah, but there's no, in terms of getting back to water,
Yeah.
there's no like
everyone has like 8, you know, like this much percentage, like you can't say that because like everyone's different. Like try to drink enough water right before you get thirsty.
Sylvester Stallone, and he's a big guy on nutrition and working out.
Who's also a lot probably on growth hormone, but
okay, well, anyway, so
he does what he's got to do.
He's got to do good. But here's the thing: what he does is he says when he gets up in the morning, right? He drinks the tallest glass of water, right?
Oh yeah.
You know, just first thing he does, boom, 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 boom. You know, and I'm sure that, you know, if you don't get any kind of water intake during the day, you know, that's probably a smart thing to do when you get up in the morning.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got your morning void. You know, it's the first thing you do when you wake up. Go to the bathroom.
Go to the bathroom.
Flush it out. Well, you got to be topped off somehow.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So like, I mean, even like as a practice of nutrition, drinking a tall glass of water before you eat something.
Yeah.
Will go a long way because it's going to help you get satiated a little bit sooner. It's going to help with digestion.
A tall glass of water before you eat
before
dinner.
You eat anything.
Before you eat a meal.
Before you eat anything.
Okay. And does that have like does it take up room so you don't eat as much?
Yeah. Well, there's this. There's the vagus nerve, which will help tell you whether you're hungry or not. And one of the things, just try to focus on. You know, I don't like focusing on so much what to eat as so much as how and why. So one of those hows is how do you eat?
Yeah.
So if you eat fast, you're going to eat a lot.
Yeah.
Whereas if you eat slow, it takes about 20 minutes for that vagus nerve to kick in and say, whoa, you've had enough. Like you go to Thanksgiving or dinner.
Mine's like 35 minutes.
You eat it, yeah. So like, thanks, I understand now. Give your time enough time for that signal to reach the brain. So again, it's the body telling the brain, hey, we've had enough. Yeah. So like that Thanksgiving dinner, that's why well, you done gone eat too much, too fast, too soon.
Now you're a guy that's still competitive, right? You're still doing a great job, man. Keep it up. You're honestly, you are an inspiration to a lot of competitors, not just the veteran competitors, you know. And so with that, I mean, you compete at the 100-kilogram division.
A lot of heavyweight.
Okay.
Doing a lot of heavyweight.
All right, a lot of heavyweight lately, but you competed at the 100-kilogram division.
Yeah, it depends on the tournament.
Okay, so, like, let's say a high-level USA Judo national tournament or like the IJF level. Okay.
Yeah, just because like you can weigh the day before, like.
Yeah.
I don't have to cut weight, I won't. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, but now getting to having to cut down to 100 kilos. How far in advance on let's say a tournament that you eyeball and you say, you know, I want to get down for that big event, how far in advance do you start your, I don't even want to use the word cut. What I want to use the word is your nutrition, mental, and what you're, you know, the way you're guarding your mouth, you know, what you're eating.
Probably 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah,
okay.
Just to the first week to kind of feel out, okay, like this is the direction I want to take. I like the water loading. I experimented one time with some sodium loading. I did that once. I might revisit that again. That the idea with that is that you take in a lot of salt in your water, so you increase that salt table. So sodium is electrolyte, so you're gonna retain a lot of water. And then so you get used to it, and then you start tapering off, because the body's so used to that level, just like the water loading idea. The sodium thing. I was doing some research on it with a lot of what bodybuilders do. I'm kind of interested in doing it, but I don't know if it's very conducive to combat sports necessarily.
Yeah.
Just because like when you need sodium to kind of use muscle.
Yeah.
Whereas with water loading, you lose it easily and gain it back fairly quickly.
By what you eat.
Yeah. One other thing that I did that I had a lot of success with was a protocol I picked up from Tim Ferriss.
Yeah. He's a lab rat.
He's crazy.
He experiments with all sorts of crazy.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's
body-wise, he's
figured
a
some
lab rat.
things out. He did like some crazy weight cut for some world kickboxing champion, and it was almost unfair, like how much weight he lost in a 24-hour period.
Yeah.
But just basically sit in a hot tub for like 8-10 minutes at a clip, like total submersion in a hot tub, like hot.
So 8-10 minutes, and then get out.
And then get out, cool down, do what you got to do to cool down.
Yeah.
And he just did that in like increments, like
all day. You know, like how many
he
reps?
He did it all day. Like it depends. Like he said he lost 20 pounds, and he's a smaller guy than I am, so it's much harder for him than it would be for me to lose 20 pounds.
Wow. Like I wonder how many times in that day did he do that to cut the weight? I'm gonna go buy a hot tub tomorrow. You know.
Let me tell you,
Be a lot easier for me,
I did it for a World Masters.
Yeah.
I did it actually twice for a World Masters.
The hot tub idea.
Yeah, it is extremely effective.
But
it sucks when you're doing it.
It sucks when you do it. Okay.
You should do it with someone supervising you.
Okay.
You could.
Or you could hurt yourself. All right. So then, not what you should do.
Yeah.
But let me ask you a question. So you do that, okay? How many times? How many reps in that? 8 minutes in, come out, cool down, back in, another 8 minutes. Like how many reps? You know.
I think it depends on how much you weigh.
Yeah.
How much you have to lose, because I would like in a 10-minute sitting, if the water's hot enough, I was losing like almost 2 pounds.
In 10 minutes.
10 minutes, like because the idea is the humidity. So like you can get the same response.
But is it burning water?
I'm not telling people to do this.
No,
I'm just telling you what I did.
Yeah. But is it burning water? It's not burning fat.
It's the subcutaneous water table in the skin.
Okay.
So it's not fat. So it's not something like you can do like, I lost 20 pounds and like
it's not
you're
like,
gonna go back out.
It's not like hot water.
You're gonna get it. Here's one thing I'll tell you that Ferriss warned about, and I saw like because I experimented with it a little bit beforehand, is if you do a hot tub, because it's the idea of the moisture drawing out the sweat, and you go in and take a shower,
cold shower,
and just a shower, for whatever reason, the body absorbs that water back.
Oh,
yeah. So
wow.
Don't make that mistake. So if you're like, I'll take a hot shower instead, like, don't do that. Like you will put, for whatever reason. You could do a steam room. A steam room is more effective than a hot sauna because you need the humidity. It's the idea of the humidity drawing the water out of the body.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. I learned something today. I learned a lot today, but that was amazing. I'm gonna just veer off for a second to tell you that obviously early on in your competitive career, you know, at all local stuff, we had seen each other at the Liberty Bell, and like both of us would go, we would drive in, weigh, we'd get something to eat, we'd drive home, and then we'd come all the way back the next day to not to spend, night in a hotel and watch people, run around crazy.
Doing this.
Yeah, exactly. So we did it on the cheap, okay? But one time you and I had gone out to get something to eat afterwards in an Italian restaurant.
Yeah, I remember.
We were gonna get some goodies that day, right after we weighed in. And I was 90, you were 100 kilos at the time. And so I really didn't know Damian. And show your arm. All I saw was the tattoos, and I'm like, oh, you got Ronald Reagan. Look, I didn't even know that's Ronald Reagan.
Well, where'd you see that? I thought, all right.
Back then, again, 20 years ago. And so the cool part was that I'm getting to know you, and we're sitting at that restaurant, and you tell me that you were going to Rutgers. I'm like, oh, wow. And I'm listening now, you're pointing at Ronald Reagan. I'm like, wow, this guy's right in, And I'm saying, yeah. He knows what he's talking about. And then I came out and told you, like, what I think of you now is that you're a student that's learning all the time. You're taking all this in. This is, I mean, I couldn't get to this level of nutrition like you are because you are, you know, you're smarter than I am, you know. But back then I was like, you know, I don't think that guy's too smart, you know, by the look of you. But now, you know, when you get to know you know, it's like, it's like Damian is a lab rat at jiu-jitsu. He's a lab rat at judo, you know, and he'll try and do anything in a obviously legal way on the mat to win, you know, and you're a student of the game like you are a student at nutrition, you know, and I say that as a tremendous compliment, you know, knowing, you know, like what our interaction was and saying, wow, he really, dude, this guy's top notch.
Looking guy, you know?
But no,
knows what exchange rates are and inflation.
and hypernutrita, right? Yeah. There you go, right? I got one
You'll
today.
never live that down.
Oh, no, I'm gonna wear it like a badge.
Left out posterior chain.
Posterior chain.
Okay.
We gotta clinch our butts all the time. Anyway, but getting to like your education at Rutgers, right? You got your bachelor's
In poli-sci of all
and
things.
in political science. No, that's good. And
that's where I met my wife.
There you go. There you go. So when you were, and it was at Rutgers, you weren't commuting from Rutgers all the way down here. You were staying.
No, well, my first semester, but I lived up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And not on campus, but kind of like off campus.
Yeah, off campus housing. I was way too old.
Yeah.
I came in. I went back to school when I was 22. I think.
Awesome. All right.
Yeah.
That's great.
Before that, I was a Teamster truck driver for Pepsi Cola.
Okay.
This is a funny
And look at you today. I mean, honestly, the transformation
what I know now.
What you know now. You recently turned 40.
Yeah.
Right? And I remember like wishing him happy birthday on the phone, and I said, "Hey man, happy birthday." And I said, "How do you feel?" And he had said to me, and I love telling this. You said, "My 40-year-old." No, it was when you were 39. My 39-year-old would crush my 29-year-old. You know, and so
oh my God.
What we grow into,
right,
good or bad, you know, for you it's been a positive growth. You know what you know, what you're teaching your students. You know, whether it be in nutrition or judo or jiu-jitsu, it says a lot for who you are. I think so.
It's just trajectory. You know, everyone. You know, people warn me when you get to 30, you get to 35. When you get to 40, you're gonna start falling apart. You won't be able to handle it. It's like, well, a lot of people, I feel like, kind of say that it's just because they've been on this trajectory, like relying on the strength that was given to them in their youth and haven't done anything to maintain.
In terms of, you mean continuing judo and jiu-jitsu?
Well, continuing any kind of like activity or
lifestyle.
You know, and it's something I you know, try to foster in my children is like, you know, because everyone says like how poorly these kids eat, and there's a lot of like nefarious stuff and things that look healthy, like that vegetable oil, like that's, I'll get a whole tirade about that. That stuff should be criminalized. But looking at what you know, I eat through what my children eat, and then, you know, we kind of go, well, they can eat that stuff, they can eat that junk, because like they're not, well, aren't they, are not happen to be overweight at this point.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, at what point?
Yeah.
Someone doesn't get diabetes or hypertension or heart disease like that.
Yeah.
It's been happening a long time.
Yeah.
So if you're telling me like, oh, you're gonna feel like garbage when you're 40, well, what have you been doing for the past 40 years to get to this point?
Yeah, but hypertension can be because of obviously obese, you know, weight. Hypertension could also be because it's just in your family genes, you know.
It could be, but how often is that? Like, could you be doing something to negate that?
Funny, listen, it's funny you say that. In my 20s, I had not high blood pressure, I had hypertension. So it was like teetering, but back then it was like teetering like, you know, 130 over 85. And so the doctor said, hey man, do you work out? Work out. Doc, man, dude, judo. I'm 90 kilos, right? I'm 198 pounds. You know, you have no clue. Like I'm on the mat, you know, 3-4 times a week. What I drive to get to a workout is ridiculous. So like, I was kind of offended when he said it to me. He goes, and so I always, again, it's in my family. My grandmother blessed us with it. You know, high blood pressure, and so I fought not to take high blood pressure medication till last summer. Now I'm 47, right? So at 46, right? I'm 47, yeah, 47, right? So at 46, I finally agreed to take it. My doctor said to me, it's time. You know, you're at, you know, 140 over 90 sometimes. You know, it's like it's the third time I tag you here. You know, we gotta bring this down. You know, before you catch a stroke. So I agreed to. Believe me, I tried to stay away from it for a long time. And the one thing that runs in my family is diabetes. And so that's the big reason I go and get my blood work every year. Is I wait, you know, till I get my blood work, and I'm like, hey man, how's the sugar? How's the sugar? How's the sugar? It's probably, I asked him probably 3 times, you know, how's the sugar? And I'm more worried about that than I am high blood pressure. But he, you know, my sugar was fine, but he said, we want to focus on your blood pressure. And so I take, before I go to bed every night, 50 milligrams. And I don't want to take it, but I take it because, you know, it got to the point where my mom was like, take it, because you need to, you know.
Yeah.
You don't want you to have a stroke, you know. So.
It's the last thing we want.
No. But, you know, so I think in regards to getting back to high blood pressure, it happens to obese people, right? You could do a better job by getting, you know, taking, for me, it'd be great if I could take 20 pounds off the frame and get back to 90, right 90 kilos, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but, you know, I'll tell you that I always look for, I don't want to say this out loud and admit it, but like the simplistic approach, you know, like, you
Simple
know.
but not easy.
What's that?
Simple but not easy.
Simple but not easy, because you got to prepare the mind, you know, to do it. And I think for a lot of people, especially judo competitors or former competitors, they kind of need like a competition to like get down right to that weight. You know, like that's why I see like a lot of master competitors. You know, I've talked to some and like, yeah, man, I do it just to get my weight down. You know, get that date on the calendar to kind of aim for
Bring
that
it down
and get your weight down.
Yeah, and
that sucks.
That's not always the best.
No,
that's not the best approach, because that's not sustainable.
Especially if you're doing the dumb way, like cutting.
Yeah.
Instead of
there's a difference between weight loss and weight cutting.
Yeah.
Fat loss and fat cutting.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
It's not the same thing.
No, correct.
It's a stress. Talking about before, you're reducing a stress on the body.
Cortisol.
Cortisol through the roof, baby.
Yeah.
And then there's your weight gain there. And there's other mechanisms in the body where when you stress the body, your body goes, you know what? Let's prepare for the worst. Let's start storing this fat stuff. Let's go for the long haul. And it has nothing to do with caloric intake.
That's the 80% going up right there.
Could be part of it.
Right.
Yeah. Send better signals.
Excellent conversation. Damian, thank you. Damian, if somebody wanted to reach out to you to get coached on nutrition, what's the best way for them to contact you? Through your website?
Probably through our website, Ares Athletic Club, ARES, athleticClub.com.
Here in Beach Haven, West, New Jersey, right?
Haven West, and Manahawkin. There's all sorts of municipalities.
Yeah.
Here, you can reach out that way. Email me. Even if it's just something you want to talk about. Like, I honestly, I don't feel like I can help everyone. Because if you think you can help everyone, you're not really helping anybody.
Okay.
So I like to refer out. Because I kind of like to work with people that have maybe tried a lot of things and then didn't quite work, so that way we can kind of peel that onion. Because it's not a food problem; it's a people problem. You know, it's very little to do with the food. I always say nutrition is 20% diet.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. Like, obviously, with all this stuff, if you're not talking about sleep, if you're not talking about your state. People say mental state, but going back to that sympathetic and parasympathetic stuff, I think that stuff is really important to recognize. Building awareness is something that's very important, overlooked as a key weapon in dialing in anything, but specifically nutrition.
Yeah. Last question, red meat, yes or no?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Give it grass-fed.
Oh, I don't know. I'm getting the kind of meat that the BJ's, you know, I don't know if it's grass-fed, but I love steak, so I've been eating, you know, a good amount of steak during this. Somebody bought us an air fryer.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So we've been air frying steaks in that thing.
Yeah, I did it once.
No, it comes out good.
I need more practice on it.
Yeah, oh, it's easy.
Let me tell you.
I'm a dummy. I'm telling you.
If there's one thing you take away from this is how you make your steak.
Okay.
Minced pineapple,
Minced pineapple.
And you know, you get it in a can. Pour it in a tray. Or like half of it or whatever, however many steaks you're making.
Yeah.
Put said meat on it. Put the rest of it on top. Let it sit about an hour for every inch of steak you got. Wash it off. You're gonna feel the difference in the meat.
Really?
I'm telling you.
On a nutritional level, or just talking about taste?
Taste.
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 Wow.
Yeah. I mean, you could take an inferior piece of cut.
Yeah.
And it will.
That'd be BJ's.
It'll knock your socks off.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pineapple.
You're gonna wash it off.
Yeah.
You know, salt it, pepper, whatever it is you want to do.
Yeah.
It's not gonna taste like pineapple. I can guarantee you, it's gonna be a little bit of sweet. It's gonna be very juicy, but you're gonna see the difference in the meat broken down because of the enzymes in the pineapple. It's
Awesome.
fantastic.
Wow.
But grass fed. You go grass fed.
Good plug-in for pineapple right there. Right? I hope the world pineapple supply is up. You know, I got 2 public service announcements. Public service announcement number 1 is that North Jersey Judo won the bid from the USJA for the 2021 Summer Nationals.
Congratulations.
We're in the process of getting all the stuff ready for it. We're more than a year out, but I'm doing my due diligence. We have a tournament site already. We have a tournament hotel in the Morristown area. I'm going to announce it down the road, and we just had the Summer Nationals here. Salida was the tournament director with Dave Goodwin, and she had 600 competitors. So because I'm a competitive banana, I'm aiming for 800. So I'm going to make sure that I reach out to obviously all the dojos in the New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, you know, up and down the East Coast. But I'm going to reach out to California dojos, Texas, throughout the Midwest and the Northwest, and I'm going to make sure that the message is out there about our tournament.
Preach.
So, right.
Spread that.
But there you go. So anyway, so look for information about that. We bought the website handle, usjudonationals.com. So we're going to develop that website. It'll probably be launched in the fall, and you'll see a lot of information there. The second thing that I want to talk about, I'm sorry it's a little bit political, but I teach, I'm sure you teach a lot of people in law enforcement.
A few, yeah.
Okay. I've taught a lot of people in the past and currently in law enforcement. I'll go, and not only that, but I did six training sessions in 2019, in the beginning of 2019, with a cop friend of mine, Paul Marinaccio. We did a defense tactics for law enforcement, okay? And so I taught the judo aspect of it, and I can't tell you how, for me, how I think it is important for us to have law enforcement. I'm afraid of what's going on right now. They're not just my friends, they're not my good friends, they're my very, very good friends. I'm worried about their safety. We've got a protest happen now 20 minutes away from my house, and it's you know, I'm concerned. I'm concerned about what's happening in New York, all over our nation. I don't know if you want to jump in there and add something.
No, it is a shame. You know, hopefully these things can be dialed in.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely law enforcement. There's such a calling for it. And
yeah. It's needed, and
it should be mandatory. But
yeah, it's needed.
What they learn in the academy,
it's not enough.
I understand. It's just it's the punch a card.
Oh, it's not enough. And again, I talk to these guys all the time. If they have to draw a weapon, it's for once that weapon is drawn, it's for lethal force, center mass. That's the way it was explained to me. So obviously they get all the training in the world when it comes to their firearms, but not enough towards the physical confrontation. And obviously, you know what happened in Minnesota is a result of it. So I think I don't want to touch upon this now, but obviously more training has to go in for law enforcement when it comes to physical altercation that you have to have for pain compliance. And anyway, so I'm going to have a podcast about that, I think sooner rather than later. So,
yeah.
So that's it. Guys, thank you very much. Probably should have talked about that, but we did. And Damian, thank you.
All right, brother.
All right, and you know how to contact Damian, and we'll be sharing this as soon as I can get home and plug it into my computer.
All right.